Hello everyone, we are here for Tuesday Talks now. Tuesday Talks is all about getting to know an individual and finding out what makes them tick, what do they care about, how their career reflects that, and what motivates them for keep going. Now, today's guest is Jason Goldberg. You know, what does an award-winning entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, a bacon-atarian, that's a vegetarian who still eats bacon, funky sock lover, a former rapper who opened for Wu-Tang Clan. I'm sure we want to hear that story. And previously, a 332-pound man who has since lost 130 pounds despite his affinity for bacon. They all have what do they all have in common? They're all the same man. So Jason Goldberg is a mental performance and a leadership coach for celebrities, change makers, and CEO. Let's get Jason on and get to hear his story. I think we are accepting that.
Hello.
Hey, Jason, thank you very much for coming on Tuesday Talk and taking the time out.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to be here with you.
Thank you very much. I've done a short introduction for you. Hopefully that you got to hear it. If not, it was a brilliant one. I say it. And
You did. I
so,
heard it. You did amazing. Even my mom was proud. She just called me and said, "He introduced you so well, honey. It was lovely."
oh, so that's it. It's got a stamp of approval there. That's it.
That's right.
So, let's begin with asking, introducing you to the audience here now. Let us know, for the audience who are tuning in now, who you are, what you do. And the biggest question that everybody has on their mind on Tuesday Talks is, what do you do it, Jason?
That almost sounded accusatory. Why do you do it? Yeah, so it's always funny. I mean, so when you say the question, who you are, that's obviously a very deep philosophical question. I'm assuming you mean professionally what I do in the world, but who I am really at my core, I think, and this kind of will lead into both the other questions, is a joy activator. I mean, that's really at least that's what I want to be in this world. I want to be somebody who activates joy for other people. And so that can take the form of, talking to the security agent at the airport. It could take the form of talking to the barista at the coffee shop, or it could take the form of my coaching and my speaking and my book and all these other things. So the channel for what I do doesn't really matter as long as it's an opportunity for me to be in my own genius zone and to be of service to others in a way that brings them joy, which in turn brings me joy. So currently that's in the form of speaking and coaching and my book and some other things like that.
Wow. And so it's all to do with getting joy, and that's the reason you're doing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason, right? So it's funny. I really feel like for a lot of people, at least in my experience personally, but also with people that I've coached, is that the why a lot of times comes from a darker place. Now, most people won't think it comes from a darker place initially because they go, "Oh, I want to change the world. I want to do this. I want to do that." But if you really peel that back and unpack it, there's typically some darker or heavier thing that happened that made them even care enough to do that. So for me, when I think about the fact that I'm a joy activator, and I always say my one-line life plan is also my one-line business plan, to leave everybody I meet with at least 5% more joy than when I found them, right? Now, I could say, "Oh, that's what I love bringing people joy." But when you really slow that down and unpack it, I experienced so much suffering in my life, right? Especially growing up and just, my being overweight, being, raised by a single mother. My dad left my mom as soon as she was pregnant. And so it was always just the two of us, and she's amazing, but she's always dealt with a lot of, sorry, not she's amazing, but she's amazing. And she's also dealt with a lot of sadness and anxiety and stress and things like that. And so I was brought up in an environment where that was kind of the default. And so suffering for me became kind of my fluent language. And so over time, I realized in being able to finally kind of reduce my own suffering through the work that I did on myself way before I was ever being a coach, I realized that the absence of suffering is the presence of joy, right? Joy has all kinds of different meanings. Joy doesn't have to be over the top, exuberant, excited. Joy can be contented. Joy can be peaceful. Joy can be present. And so the more I can help lower people's suffering, the more their joy will increase. So one of the big reasons I do it is because I don't want to see people have undue suffering like I did growing up.
I really love that, and I love the connection that you made with the joy as well, because as joy could be means lots of different things to different people, and I love that you narrow it down to just being content.
Yeah.
it's what it initially comes down to is just being peace. How I look for it is just being at peace with yourself or your surroundings or where you are. You know, here you are, and where are you going now from here?
Yeah.
And I love that. So you're making them realize, yes, you know, you are here now. Let's work with what you have, and then move forward. Because I remember I saw you in Estonia for the super coach, and I was blown away since
Oh, thank you, man.
that time, and I was like, everything you just said in that speech was so relatable, and you're just mentioning now as well is relatable because some way or form we all go through these emotions, we all go through this suffering. What I wanted to know was, you know, why do we have to sometimes wait for that big event to happen for us to take that pivotal moment? And what do you say, have any comments on that or experience that people who are still going through it can recognize some patterns and say, okay, I can see this is happening. I don't need to wait for that big bang to happen. Then, oh, hang on, let me pivot now. If you can see your tire is going to go flat, just maybe change the tire.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's, you know, it's a tough one because there's so many different reasons people could do that. One of them could be just that it's scary to confront the things that you know are off. It can be that you feel like you don't know how to do it. Who would you be if you changed those things? Would people around you abandon you or not like who you've changed into if you confront those things? Like there's all these different kinds of reasons. But the bigger thing, and it's funny because now it goes back to what you asked me in the beginning about who I am, is it really, that's the core of it, is that if we don't understand who we actually are, and we think that we are our thoughts, we think that we are our accomplishments, we think that we are our friend group or our family, we think that we are our bodies, our perceptions, our bias, our stories, whatever that thing is, if we think that's who we are, then of course it makes sense that we would do things to mold and modify and manipulate all those things because we believe we have to do that in order to be happy. And this is actually a problem that I have, and this is, you know, I talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, so I don't really mind, but hopefully you won't mind, is it's one of the problems I have with the entire personal growth industry. And I'm in the industry, I'm a teacher. I teach and do the exact things I'm about to tell you I don't like, right? Here's what I don't like, is that the vast majority of personal growth is geared at fixing something that reinforces that we're separate, or that we are our thoughts, that we're not separate, that we are our thoughts, that we are our bodies, that we are our families, that we are our friends, that we are whatever. And so there's an element of meeting people where they are. Like, for example, if you tell a kid, you have a small child, and they have to go get a shot for like a vaccine or something, you don't go into all the medical background of like, this is how the vaccine works, and we don't want you to have polio because polio will attack your cells. And the kid, you can't do that with a kid. You have to just meet the kid where they're at, right? And so I think personal growth is great to meet people where they're at, but at some point, we have to take a step back and say, am I still trying to fix something that isn't broken?
I love that, actually. I love that. If we're still trying to fix something, if it isn't broken, so it just sounds like, you know, it could be that where they are is okay, and you wait and see if they realize themselves. And I love the fact that you pointed out, you know, it is lots of fears. It is definitely that. I mean, it took myself some of my own personal journey to go through from where I am now. I'm all about now where I am, and here I am, you know. And this doesn't matter for who is thinking what, it's all about myself. So it does, you know, if I'm now saying this and people listening to it, it'll sound selfish that, oh, what do you mean by it's all about yourself? Anything I'm creating, this podcast is for myself as well. You know, it's for me to, what I mean by that is I am learning from it myself. And then in that process, I'm teaching others at the same time. But I am thinking of myself first, and that's what I try to point out for quite a lot of people, that it's about you first. You know, whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating, is for yourself, and in that process, you are now helping others and creating whatever that is for everybody else. So coming back to yourself, you know, and now you're a busy man with all these expand of things that you've been doing. So you opened up for Wu-Tang Clan. What was that like?
It's like,
little off topic,
let's dive in. Who's the self, and what does it all mean, and what's the existential crisis? And let's talk about Wu-Tang. So it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Yeah. So I was into hip hop from a very young age. I always loved hip hop. I think I was 13 years old when I bought my first two hip hop CDs from a garage sale across the street from my house. One of them was Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince Summertime was one of them. And then
Oh,
Dr. Dre's The Chronic was the other one. So those are totally, completely separate types of hip hop. And I just always became a huge hip hop fan. And then when I was probably about 17, when I was 16, I remember sitting in the doctor's office with my mom. She was like being seen by the doctor, and I was sitting in the lobby. And I had the little pamphlet that would come with the CDs. Back in the day, hey, kids listening, there used to be CDs. And when you had the CDs and you opened them, there was a little pamphlet. And inside the pamphlet, they would have all the lyrics of the
I
songs.
was
I
going
know,
to
I'm
say
an old
lyrics,
man.
right?
That's it. And so I remember being 16 years old and sitting there and just rewriting the lyrics of somebody else. They weren't my lyrics, but there was something about feeling like I wanted to feel what it felt like to write raps. I wanted to take, this was a Nas album that I had. I remember it was the Nas It Was Written album, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. And I remember sitting there just rewriting it. And there's something really powerful in that because, you know, even the Beatles were originally a cover band, right?
That's how they started, yes.
That's how they started. And so we so often think that we have to be complete originals in order to put something out in the world. But it's okay to start by mimicking other people. Now, we're not saying steal their stuff and say it's your own. But what we're saying is that you can be inspired by the people. You can take what they're doing and you can evolve it. And so I always tell people all the time, don't try to be revolutionary, just try to be evolutionary, right? You don't need to build the newest thing that nobody's ever seen before. Take what's out there in the world, bring your own experience into that mix because it evolves immediately when you bring your experience into the mix and then share that with the world. And so I didn't mean to make the Nas thing into a personal growth lesson, but that's
Well,
something
it
that,
was nicely done.
So anyway, so I kept doing that, and then I got really lucky when I was writing raps and stuff through high school, and I was with a group of guys who were also rappers, but they weren't very sincere about it. They kind of would do it, and then they would go smoke a bunch of weed, and then and it just didn't feel right for me. And then when I was 19, I got introduced to this guy by one of my friends who had a rap group, and they were actually really doing it. Like they were producing music, they were doing all these things. I joined that group, and then we became the go-to group in Orlando, Florida, where I'm from. I live in LA now, but I was in Orlando at the time. We were the go-to group. So anytime a major artist would come into town, they would call us to open up for them. And so, but they didn't want all of us because we had like a 7-member group. And they're like, listen, guys, Wu-Tang can do 7 members on stage. You can't do 7 members on stage. So they would tell us, pick 1 or 2 guys from your group that you want to open for this artist and you'll be able to do it. So when the artist would come in, it would be like, oh, Busta Rhymes coming in town. And one of my friends is like, I got to open for him. And then Wu-Tang's coming in town. I'm like, I got to open for them. And so we just had this ability to open up for these big artists. And it was so much fun.
Well, I love that. And I love how you also obviously connected it to personal growth because everything we are doing and hence that's why I brought that Wu-Tang up because all those journeys is the same person and that's who made you who you are now because everything we are doing, if you look back and you connect the dots, it's made the person you are now and it's made the person who's taking the decisions now and that fact as well, right? And also going to touch upon your favoritism for bacon. That's a new thing. I was reading about it. I'm like, what?
Even just the smell of it, like even if you don't eat bacon, you can't deny the smell is like it's heaven on earth. It's like the most amazing. And there's a video of a kid online. I'll have to find it somewhere. Video of a kid online of the first time he ever tried bacon. He's like probably 2 years old. This kid, and he tries and you see his entire face. He goes, and then he starts going, bacon, bacon. He's just freaking out. So I don't advise you give your kids drugs like that. But yeah, bacon. There's just something about it, man. It just smells really good.
Nice. Okay. So I mean, obviously that's part of your journey as well. That you're on a vegetarian journey, but you still managed to hang on to the bacon side of things.
Everything in moderation, I guess, except for maybe not some things, but most things.
I love that, and I am sure it also links up to somehow who you are and what brings to the surface here, right? So I wanted to touch upon when you're so busy, obviously speaking events, your book, podcast. I know you have your own podcast as well. So how do you now manage that time for people who are watching this, who are also challenged with and want to create so many things and be involved with so many things that want to do? How do you manage your time? What's the system that you've made? Obviously, for everybody who's listening, it's just a suggestion. We all have to try and see what works for us.
No. My way is the only way. If anybody tells you to do it differently than my way, they're wrong. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. I love this. I was just talking to a client about this right before this live. So a few things here. Number one is it's wonderful when we have a lot of creative energy and there's a lot of things we want to create. That's fantastic. And just the ideas are flowing and you're excited and all these things. It's also really important to recognize, just like if you ever take a little magnifying glass and you know how you can have the sun go through the magnifying glass and you can like set a leaf on fire. That only happens if that magnifying glass is stable over top of that leaf. If you try to move it all around like this, it's never going to happen because there's no direct energy source that's being brought into this thing. There's no time and attention being poured into the thing you're focusing on. And so the first thing I say is if you have all this creative energy and all these things that you want to create, have one or two projects that are your key, like your core, your North Star, this is the thing. Everything else goes on a not now list. Okay, and I have my clients create a not now list because the problem is that the reason we think we have to create it all is because we get the scarcity mentality from our ego that says if we don't create this thing now, we'll never create it, or the idea will go away, or I won't feel inspired again later. And that's all BS. If we just have a place to put it, then the mind and the ego goes, okay, I've been heard. He's put it aside. He's going to work on it at some point. Now I can allow that creative energy to go back to the main core things he's working on. So that's number one, is to have that not now file instead of trying to do all the different things. The second thing is I very much subscribe to what I call sacred calendaring. Okay, sacred calendaring. Sacred calendaring to me means if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. And so every person that I work with, one of the first things we do is if they're not already, and even if they are using their calendar, we audit their calendar, right? And I tell them we're going to do sacred calendaring. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist. And that's all I say. I don't give them any other context. And I say, once you do it, send me an image, a screenshot of your calendar. And without fail, 99.999% of the time, I get the first draft back and it's just completely filled. Every single day, there isn't a second of free space at all. It just, everything is book. And they're so excited. They're like, look, I did it. I got everything on my calendar. And I said, great, now break out the machete. Okay, because the fact that there's no white space in here is an issue, right? That's a challenge. And so I give them another exercise. It's an exercise I created for myself probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. I was sitting in a cafe in Tennessee, somewhere in Chattanooga, Tennessee, random. Really beautiful town though. So I'm sitting in a cafe and I'm feeling a ton of overwhelm. I'm feeling like I have so much stuff going on and, you know, I'm building my coaching business, doing all these things, doing speaking, writing the book, all this stuff. And I just felt so overwhelmed by it all. And so I decided to sit down and do a very basic kind of audit, probably something that everybody who's watching this and yourself have probably done at some sort. I had 3 columns. The first column was whatever the thing is that I'm doing, like the actual activity, you know, working on the book, coaching, doing Facebook Lives, whatever the thing is. Second column was the frequency, right? How often am I doing that? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? All that stuff, really basic stuff. Third row is meant to be scored on a scale of 0 to 10, right? 0 meaning it does not fit in with any of my North Stars, those 2 big projects I told you, like have 2 big projects you're working on, or definitely big projects, but 2 projects. If it's a 0, that means it doesn't align with that at all, and I can drop it. If it's a 10, that means it's obviously directly in alignment, and I'm going to keep it. But here's where it goes from being just a basic list into something that's actually more helpful. 0, 9, and 10 are the only options you can use when you score that third column, right? This is just something I said to myself, because if I try to give it that's a 4. Well, what do I do with that? What do I do with a 4? I don't, it's like just in a weird in-between space. So basically, if it was a 0, I knew it right away. If it was a 10, I knew it right away. Everything else got a 9. And what a 9 means is now it goes to the court of law in my head. And there's 2 attorneys. There's one attorney that says, this is a 0, we got to get rid of it. And another attorney that says, no, this is a 10, we got to keep it. And I just watch them. I watch them fight. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, actually, that's a better point. Oh, I don't really believe that. So, oh, that's another good point. And at the end of that little trial, I know if it's a 0 or a 10. And when I did that exercise the first time, literally, man, 2/3 of what was on that list got taken away. It all got taken away. But we have to be okay with the fact, and again, this was what just came up with my client here, we have to understand that our need to fill the calendar, to fill every minute of time, to be super productive, that oftentimes comes from an identity challenge. It comes from a place where we're not good enough. We're not deserving of rest unless we do all these things. We're not a serious entrepreneur unless we do all these things. And so it's really important to kind of peel back and say, the productivity stuff is great. The sacred calendaring is great. The doing the 3-column thing is great. But behind that, what is it that's making me believe that I have to do all this stuff in order to be enough?
I actually I love that. And whilst you were saying this, I just a thought came in my mind is like, because for me, I'm a firm believer of whatever gets scheduled gets done.
Yeah.
So I have a calendar, so in that calendar, I also have breaks for myself. My
Yep.
lunch time is there, my break is there, time to go for a walk is there. Even if I want to just sit down somewhere and not do anything, that is there as well. It just says me. It just says me on it. And that just means do whatever I want to do now, switch off from everything. So that gets scheduled. And I love that. And what I was just thinking of is, I've met few perfectionists now, right, who are challenged, because I don't like to say the word problem, but challenged with this. So how do you say they can also try to incorporate what you just mentioned? If they are like, oh man, I can't just do 0, 9, and 10s, everything got to be 10 now.
Right. 100%. Yeah. So this is where the identity work comes in, right? And this is where the really fun stuff happens, because if it weren't for the identities we carry around, for the most part, we'd be a lot happier, right? Without anything changing in the world of form. And believe me, I'm not one of these, over the top woo-woo people. I definitely have a woo part of myself and I'm very spiritual, but I'm not an over the top woo-woo person. I get that we are in the world of form. We're in the 3D world. We have to interact with people and things in this world, right? We don't have the liberty of being Buddhist monks and being in a monastery somewhere, right? We have to deal with the modern day issues that everybody deals with. And so if it's just the identity, then we need to question that identity. And the way I talk about this, and you probably heard me say this in Estonia, was imagine that you are the director of the movie Batman, right? And so let's just say Michael Keaton is your star, the only Batman in my eyes. I don't like Ben Affleck and Christian Bale and all these idiots. Michael Keaton is the guy. He's the original. And so imagine you're the director and he's doing his Batman thing on set. You're filming the whole movie. He's fighting. He's doing pow on the screen, all that stuff. And then you yell cut and you're working with the crew and getting ready for the next scene. And you look over and you see Batman pacing back and forth on the set. And he looks really stressed out. And he's your star. You want to make sure he's okay. So you go up to him and you say, hey, man, what's going on? You look stressed. And he goes, oh, man, I don't know. I mean, I am stressed. I just, what if I'm not strong enough to beat the Joker? What if my technology is not powerful enough? What if the people of Gotham die on my watch? Like, how am I supposed to deal with the fact that all these people died and it's my fault? And you're looking at him saying, like, in your head, what the hell is he talking about? It's a movie. Like, what is he talking? But you want to take care of him. You want to be there for him. So you have two choices. Number one, you could say, okay, Batman, let's figure out how to make your tech stronger so you can beat the Joker and save the people of Gotham, thus reinforcing the identity that he is Batman. Or the second option is to remind him that he's Michael Keaton that's playing the role of Batman. And once Michael Keaton gets that he's playing the role of Batman, it doesn't mean that Batman's problems disappear. But just like if you have a child and they have a little Barbie doll and the head pops off the Barbie doll and they're screaming and crying, oh my God, my Barbie. And you walk up, you know that it's not that significant. You grab the Barbie, you grab the head and you pop it back on and you hand it to him and everything's good. So it doesn't mean you don't attend to the things going on in the world, but it means you have this non-identification, this depersonalization, where you can approach Batman's problems without believing that something is at risk to you because Batman has problems. You see what I mean? And so this is an exercise that everybody here can do, is when you get into that place. I just did it this morning. I do it sometimes once a day, sometimes multiple times a day, who knows, whenever I need it. So when I feel that, when I lose track of the fact that I am Jason Goldberg playing a role of whatever role I'm playing that day, I will sit down, I'll close my eyes. This takes all of 2 minutes. So all of you busy perfectionists, you can do this. 2 minutes, and I'll sit there, and maybe I even do with the perfectionist thing, and I say, today, I am playing the role of Jason, the perfectionist coach who won't put out his new program because it's not quite ready, right? And I'm like, and I can play that role like Oscar-winning level. I know exactly what that role does. He procrastinates, he beats himself up, he distracts himself. Like, I know how to play that role all day, Oscar award-winning. And then I ask myself, okay, so that's the role that I'm playing. How does it feel right here, right now? How does life feel right here, right now, without an attachment to that role? If in my mind, I can see that they said cut, we were filming a scene where I was being the perfectionist coach, yada, yada, yada. They yell cut, and I take off whatever the uniform is that perfectionist Jason wears, and I put it back on the shelf or back on the rack, and then I sit and I say, great, they've yelled cut. That burden no longer applies to me anymore. That was a role that I played, but it's not a role that I'm playing anymore. How does life feel right now? Does life feel more peaceful? Does it feel more content? Does it feel more stressful? Does it feel more overwhelming? And when I sit with that, 100% of the time, brother, I get at least a sliver of peace that comes through. My nervous system starts to come down. And now all the things that I was like, oh my God, how do I do that? I can't figure it out. I see it as Michael Keaton and I go, oh yeah, that is a real thing in the world of form, but there's nothing at risk about my safety if that thing doesn't work out the way that I want it to work out. So that identity piece with the perfectionist, if you really get to the core of that and you do that work, you'll notice the perfectionist is just trying to protect some part of your ego that doesn't need protection.
I really love that, and I love the story that you shared, and you did share that in Estonia as well. It definitely made an impact on myself as well, because I love deadlines. So I work, because I come from a corporate background, and so that's ingrained in me. So everything has a deadline, and sometimes I'll procrastinate. Oh yeah, there's a deadline. I'll just do it a day before, even though I know I might need some time. So for that, and then when the deadline is approaching, I'm like, oh my God, it's pulling my hair and everything. I need to do it. Now I've got 10 more things to do with it. And then, yeah, it was like, okay, taking that exercise of like, okay, here I am, what is happening there? Is this my character that is doing this? And what do I need to do as well myself? And then step back and then let that character play its part and then come back out and then go back into that character and do what that character needs to do. And I love that story that you just shared. Moving to your, obviously, you said you are, you are partly spiritual as well. We all are, not totally 100%, but, you do. Is there some sort of practice, or some people like to call it ritual, that you follow, like, meditation, journaling, nighttime routine that you love to share and recommend that is working for you?
Yeah. My morning routine has become so, and I know it's so cliche when people talk about morning routines, but the reason things are cliche is because they stand the test of time. They continue to prove that they work, and that's why people keep doing them. You know what, man, I've really tested so many things over the years to figure out what worked, and everything, there was kind of like a little off here, a little off there, and I wasn't sure, and now I finally feel like I have something dialed in. So my morning routine is a little bit, it's not really that detailed, I guess, but it starts in the morning with quiet, right? I wake up and I want to be in silence. I wake up around 5:30 in the morning, between 5 and 5:30 a.m. And I love it because it's still dark, everything's quiet, and you can just like ease into the morning. I come and I take some like supplements, probiotics, prebiotics, all that stuff. I like to prepare things, so I'll get like my vitamins laid out for the day. If there's any dishes to wash, I'll do that. And this is all about decluttering the mind and the physical space, right? So it's not just about doing dishes. It's about not having an open loop that my mind is thinking about when I need to have all of my attention be available for my clients or for whatever work that I'm doing. So I'll do that stuff. Then I'll read or consume something consciously, whether it's a video or a book, or sometimes I go back and read my own notes to myself, because what better wisdom for me than me? And so sometimes I don't go to other books and stuff. I just listen to my own stuff. And then I don't mean watching my own videos, but I mean like my own notes to myself. I would never watch my own videos. It's very narcissistic. And then after I'm done with that, then I get into meditation. And my meditation is 20 minutes every day. And the form of meditation can change. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's guided. Recently, my girlfriend, who's Punjabi, has put me on to some really cool Punjabi music, like chants. And so I've been doing a lot of Satnam stuff every morning and doing that as a part of my meditation, which has been really cool, just energetically. And then I go to the gym and I get some movement in. And that's basically my entire morning routine. And the reason I think a morning routine is so important and why I'm okay with it being so cliche is the way I think about it is, if you are a firefighter, right? When you get to the station in the morning, you have to check all the equipment. You got to check the truck, you got to check the hose, you got to check all the gear, because once a fire happens, there's no time to check the equipment. That time is already passed. And so for me, my morning routine is a way for me to check all the equipment and make sure everything is good and everything's ready to go before I go out there to whatever fires may appear in the world. So for me, it's not just like this cliche like, oh, this is you should do this for your spiritual practice. For me, it's very pragmatic. If I want to show up as my best in the world and be of service, I need to take care of home base first.
I really love that, and I love how you joined it with the fire station side of things, because it drives home for me with that already, because yes, you don't expect the firefighters to turn up and then start checking, oh, where's the hose? Oh, we left it back there. So they have to obviously every time they have to do that checks. I mean, any professional person, military guys, and they have these routines to make sure everything is in check, because when the time comes, you are then just able to perform and deliver and whatever that is for the person listening to this now. So you're making sure. And I love that you're in the 5 a.m. club. Why not 5:30 a.m. club? Yeah.
Why not? We can have whatever club we want.
Yes, exactly. So is there, and there has been time that I've tried, due to work. I used to wake up very, very early, and it does give you a lot of time, as you said, to do all these things. And by the time I was heading actually to work, I was already so calm and collected. It just didn't bother me, to the points where I'll be rushing. Oh yeah, I just woken up an hour before and I'm getting ready and you have to rush and the things. And then I'm thinking, did I shut the door and left the house? You're not thinking of any of those things. And so 100% it works once you settle in and get yourself routine. Waking up early definitely helps. And because you get that extra hours of the day, which are not available to, well, it's available to everybody. Some people who are not taking it. I think there is a question that's popped up. Let me see if we can bring it up. Is it showing on your side?
It is, yeah. How do you identify the North Star when all of them are beaming to be picked? Yeah, I love that. So I love that. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, Rhoda, for that question. I appreciate that. Couple things here. So the first thing is there's a lot of talk about being a multi-passionate and how that's not a good thing. Right, you got to pick a thing. You just have to be the master and do the one thing. And I'm all about mastery, right? I think mastery is really important, working at a level of excellence. And a lot of people look at the quote, a jack of all trades, master of none, right? And so people think, oh, well, that quote is telling you need to stop doing all these things and just do one thing. But that's not the actual full quote. The full quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. So literally the quote says, learn a bunch of stuff, do a bunch of stuff, be excited about a bunch of stuff. So when that comes in, what I would advise or invite anybody to do here, including Rhoda, and I've done it myself as well plenty of times, is look at all these different things, right? Because if you're saying that North Star is a thing, like it's an outcome, then look at all these different North Stars that are beaming to be picked, and ask yourself, what is the through line of all those things? What is it about those things that activates something in me that really gets me going? What is it about the impact that those things have in the world that makes me really excited? And when I do that myself and I look at all these different things that, oh, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, I notice, oh, you know what? The through line through the entire thing is just trying to help people feel more joy. And so that's my North Star. And then I get to be way more open about how that takes shape. So right now, like I said earlier, it's coaching, speaking, all that stuff, but I have no idea. A month from now, some new opportunity may come up that I can activate joy in an even different way or a bigger way. And I'm open to that, but I can only be open to that because my North Star is based on a feeling. It's based on an activation in the world versus it being a noun or an outcome or a project.
I really love that, and something similar that I also follow and say to quite a lot of people as well is we all have our own compass pointing to that North Star. So I always say we have our own compass pointing to your North Star, and just listen to that compass, because everything you're doing, if you're saying oh yeah, there's so many North Stars which are pointing up, beaming to be picked. But if you look up, there is only one North Star. Yeah, there's not many. There's only one. That's
true.
Right?
That's true.
And you only follow that, and there's other stars around it that you get fascinated by, right? But there's only one North Star that you just follow. If you were back in the time, trying to find your path, right? But now it's the same thing. All these things are there. That oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this, and you might be brilliant at that. You can do all this stuff. But there is only one, as you said, line that is gonna take you there, which is how you feel. And where do you end up every time you think of that project? That project, what's the end result that you are looking at? this project, what's the end result again? Which one for your is the joy. So that's what I suggest to everybody, you know, as terms of hone into your own compass when you're doing all these things. Where is that compass leading you in terms of what does it feel right at the end? Does that makes me happy? Is that where I'm leading to? Because they will lead into that one North Star at the end, because they will all come to that, right? I think we're getting another question for you there. Let's have another question for you.
All right. Yasmin, how are you? So good to see you. So she says, hi, Jason. How do you maintain your energy throughout the day while putting out fires? I typically like methamphetamines. That's usually my go-to. No, I'm kidding. So here's the thing. I am a big proponent of naps if needed. And these are short naps. We're not talking about like Sunday 4-hour long naps. We're talking about like, 25 minute naps.
Power naps.
Power naps, exactly, or a meditation. And then beyond that, I think it's just making sure that I have some reset time between the things I'm doing. And what I mean by that is when you look at the study of the science of flow, right? And if you've done anything like, studied Mihai Csikszentmihalyi or Stephen Kotler or one of those people that are, the masters of flow, and Stephen Kotler especially has, really done a great job of codifying what flow actually looks like. And one of the things they talk about in flow is one of the ways to not be in flow is the challenge of context switching and attention residue. Okay, so attention residue, if you think about this, so if I were to tell you, and I may have actually ruined this where you'll get the joke before I can say it, but if I were to ask you, how would you make an entire tray of chocolate brownies taste like onions without adding a single ingredient? How would you do that? Any idea?
I have no idea, no.
Okay, so I'll give you the answer. So the answer would be to cut the brownies with a knife that you just used to cut an onion.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So,
yes.
so there's residue on that knife, and then that carries everywhere else you go. So attention residue is the same way. If you're working on a thing and then you immediately switch and start working on another thing, you're bringing that residue over with you. You haven't fully been able to wash that knife off and then go cleanly into the next thing. So that's why, like I was saying earlier with the sacred calendaring, that I want to see space in your calendar. And that's why it's not just for rest purposes. It's because we need to fully close out that period of attention before we switch to the next context for our attention.
And I love this answer. I love this. And it just takes me back to my scheduling as well. As I said, I even schedule that breaks, or I call it breaks, me is in between whatever I'm doing. That me is basically looking out the window and staring up at the sky. And what that does is, because you talked about the residue, and how I look at it is because you're bogged down into one thing that you're doing, and what happens is your vision becomes narrow, and your mind is just looking at that only. Even though now you lift up and start doing something else, it still has, a feet or a hand or something in there and brings it across. And so what I usually do is as well, it has a time comes up, and I'm like looking out at the sky, just walk up to the door or something and just look up at the sky. Looking up at the sky is brilliant. And I ask everybody, how often do we look up at the sky? Nobody actually looks up at the sky. By looking up at the sky, it actually broadens your vision, and the mind actually opens up, because it was getting narrow, because you were concentrating on that one project or one thing that you were doing earlier. And now you're looking up at the sky. It's like, where's the ending? I can't see where's the end? And when that happens, and then it literally takes you 2-3 minutes. That's what it takes me. And then you can come back to whatever you're doing, grab a glass of water or whatever your drink is, and come back to the next thing that you want to start. So I love that, our synergies of answers here. I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you shared, man. That's awesome.
So we will be wrapping this up shortly. And before we do this, I asked all the guests, what would be the main thing that you want to leave all the guests who've been listening to this or will listen to this in the future as a podcast version with as we wrap this up?
Oh, man. It's such an interesting thing. I know I come across this a lot, being in the world of personal growth, and I'm sure this shows up in other industries as well, but just me being in this industry, it's very prevalent for me, is this idea that in order for us to really understand and maximize our experience of life, that we have to understand that we are both essential and irrelevant, right? holding the paradox that we are essential and irrelevant, because what happens is we end up taking life too seriously. I forget everybody else. I end up taking life too seriously. I'll speak for myself. Left to my own devices, I will take things way too seriously. People think because I'm the joy guy, I'm just naturally with the flow and totally chill and nothing ever bothers me. Totally not true. I was a massive anger guy my entire life and dealt with depression and suicidal ideation and all these, and anxiety and all the things. But what happens when we take life too seriously is that we don't leave room for really seeing the miracle that life is, right? We get so focused on my life instead of life, right? As soon as we put the word my in front of life, now everything is a threat to my life, right? And the Buddhists will say this. They'll tell you, nobody says my ocean. It's just the ocean. Nobody says my sky. It's just the sky. And so it's essential that we are here on this earth. It's essential that we do work to better ourselves. It's essential that we are in community, that we try to help people and be of service. That's essential to do. And if I died tonight, people are going to continue living tomorrow. And that really hurts my ego. But people will continue living tomorrow. And so if we can hold this paradox of like, it's essential that I'm here and it's also irrelevant, right? It matters and it doesn't matter. If I can really hold that paradox, then I have a lot more fun with the experience of life.
I love that. I don't think anybody could have put that any better than yourself now, Jason. So thank you very much for taking the time out. Everybody who's been listening to us live on Instagram now, if you had an aha moment, and I'm sure there was lots of aha moments there to take away, it's our responsibility now to share this episode with whomever just came in your mind or you think can do with listening to it, because if it created a spark in you, it will create that spark in them as well. And it's our duty to share the inspirations we have and not keep it with us, because we don't know who's gone to bed or woken up thinking of a better day. And this episode might just do that for them. And that's all we need to create joy and inspiration. So thank you very much, Jason. And thank you very much, everybody else.
Thank you for having me, man. So great to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. Bye.